right, it looks like we have pretty much everyone. So we'll go ahead and get started. Um, I will share the agenda for today. Let's see. Okay. So first of all, I want to thank you all for joining. I know a lot of programs are very close to breaking for the holidays, so we really appreciate everyone taking the time out of their busy schedules as they wrap up before the holidays. What we're going to do today, we're going to start with a presentation. So we have two faculty members from Tufts University who are going to present today, and I'll have Dr. Bard introduce them in just a moment, but they'll be speaking about their current research on father engagement and home visiting and some lessons that they've learned. And then we'll spend most of the rest of the time on for OK County, that's going to be on January 20th, and then Tulsa County will be January 26th. And for Pre-Oaks and Frontline, I know that there's only one today because that both ways you programs, the programs for 2 weeks days. So that's today. As usual, for those who aren't speaking, please feel free to reach out to the faculty members present today. And with that, I'll turn over to you, David, to introduce speakers. You're muted.
We're very fortunate to have two guest speakers with us, Dr. Rebecca Bouth and Dr. Jessica Goldberg. And I see Rebecca. Where are you, Jess? There you are, Jess. How are you? Missed you the other day. We're glad to have you with us. Becky and Jess are research professors at Tufts University. They co-direct the Tufts Interdisciplinary Evaluation Research Group. I think I got that right. They're senior research fellows at Child Trends as well. Many of you are familiar with that group. And they lead a number of studies in Massachusetts, some national in scope, some impact. And we know each other. We have very similar work circles, and we're so glad to have them accept an offer to present to us today. They've been doing some work, as it turns out, in father engagement, and very recently. And I was happy to learn all through the tweet that a study published this summer has a follow-up study attached to it. And I think we might be the first audience to hear some of the results from that. So we're really forward to it. And without further ado, we want to get right into it. I just want to preface the talk with the idea that I read most already. The next month we'll be wrapping up this particular phase of your father engagement phase. We have plans for the next phase of our work. And I'm hopeful and certain, in fact, that there will be some boldness here in what you hear from Dr. Scott Boulder that you may want to implement in your program as that next phase kicks off late January, early February. So, okay. Becky, Jess, please take it away.
Thank you. I am going to share my screen.
You should be able to share
seamlessly. Is that it? Well, Jess and I are really happy to be here. Nice to meet all of you over Zoom. And as David said, we're going to be talking to you last year. It's nice to have the small quality follow study. I would say our name is really fun to listen to today. So that's us. Let me just here. Just a lot of time to here. As you all know, routine participants in home visiting can be a big challenge. We know that early attrition and family looking to it, feel like that impacts on families. So the idea that families might not get all the information if they're leaving early. Existing studies, not that many, but they're kind of slowly building up, including the study that we'll talk about today. So just that they really want to engage. And I welcome responses to we want to engage with kind of curriculum and receive the support services that they need. And so by doing that, we hope to make things on themselves. But the challenge of happy moms engagement, well, remember and how dad's engagement affects moms. We'll always look at that studies. And probably more importantly, is that there's been really a lack of consistent sort of operational engagement with mom engagement and father engagement. So that's what hampered and limited our understanding of the processes, sort of how dad's engagement affects mom's engagement and then how mom's engagement can affect outcomes. And so just to let you know, our first study won't really address that sort of how do we define engagement issue. It really will focus more on how dad's engagement is related to mom's engagement and retention. But our second study really does try to unpack. It's more qualitative. And it really does try to unpack this understanding of father engagement and mother engagement and sort of strategies home visitors can use to engage fathers and get them sort of in the program and keep them engaged. And then how that sort of relates to mom's ability to stay in the program. So we hope we're sort of moving the field forward a little bit with our work. All right, so this is the first initial study. This is one that was published on Prevention Science. Just to kind of start by saying, since 1998, the Children's Trust Massachusetts, and they're the sort of quasi-governmental state agency that administers Healthy Families Massachusetts, called HFM. And that is the largest home visiting program in Massachusetts. It's an affiliate of Healthy Families America, as you probably imagined. And really, since 1988, they've invested a lot of time and resources to promote father participation in HFM, including making it clear that it's not just a program for mothers, it's a program for parents. And I think they were doing this pretty early on. In FY18, 18%, slightly old data here, we haven't updated it. In FY18, 18% of all home visits included a co-parent. And so because fathers take the primary visit, mothers take co-parent here, but 18% of all visits conducted included a co-parent, so 2 parents attending. And about half of participants participated in at least one home visit with a co-parent. So some pretty good stats there. And of course, not all parents have a co-parent, so that's going to affect those percentages. So based on evidence that we had meeting with HFM over the years, they've always suspected that sort of getting dads in the room and getting dads participating and engaged was related to increases in maternal retention, but they didn't sort of have any evidence on it. But they also knew that there was lots of variability, in this based on sort of the program, the sort of supervisor, et cetera. And so we kind of agreed with that we would do this initial study. And we decided that we would base it using existing data rather than going out and collecting new data. I'm sure, as many of you know, home visiting programs, management information systems are really rich sources of data. And so we use the management information system used by HFM called the Participant Data System, or PDS, for this initial study. And so while it's a rich data source, it does have some limitations because, of course, its primary use is really for programming, not for evaluation. And so just tell you a little bit about that study before I present some findings. So we captured a mom's participation over 27 periods. That's like the amount of moms to stay in the program. And really the mom is the unit of analysis here. So we focused our sort of 5 outcomes moms for attention. And we did sort of, a couple other studies are out there looking at associations between dad's participation, mom's engagement. Our unique contribution, we tried to sort of look at dad's engagement in a couple of different ways. So dads could be engaged in the program in sort of 3 different ways. Well, one, of course, they don't participate at all. Dad's not, doesn't come to any home visits, whether because he's not, currently co-parenting with mom or for other reasons, not interested, etc. We also have moms who have fathers participating informally. What this means is that dad is not in the data management system at all. He just can kind of pop in for a visit when he feels like it. It might be one visit, might be every time. So we call that informal father participation. And that was about 40% of our sample. I should have noted the dads who did participate also about 40%. And then we had a smaller group of fathers that are formally participating as primary participants. That was about 5% of the sample. And what that means is that dad is actually enrolled as a primary participant with the mother. As long as he meets eligibility criteria, that's totally welcome and fine. And then a second formal participation was dad participating as a secondary participant, and that was about 16% of the sample. And that's kind of similar to the primary participant, but what a secondary participant means is that dad doesn't want to be the main person, but he's happy being sort of listed as a participant in the data. Dad is listed and it's documented whenever dad attends a home visit. So we kind of have this span of sort of no participation, informal, and more formal. And we have to sort of look at that and how related to mom's participation in the program. And for this, again, like I said, we're not attacking engagement or deeply this initial study. We look at engagement, looking at number of home visits mom attended. Just to say, we also looked at duration, and the findings are really the same. So we opted to focus on number of home visits. And duration was coded as how long, I think in months that mom stayed in the program. This is what we found this here. First of all, just say we found really large and robust associations between dad's participation and mom's home visits. So any participating from a dad, even one home visit, was associated with mom staying in the program longer. But we did find some more nuance in the sense that sort of whether dad was formally or informally enrolled also made a difference. So as you can see there, the bar to the left is moms with no participation. On average, she received about 28 home visits. The next bar there is moms who had dads participating informally, which, as you recall, is when dads are not sort of officially on books at all, but they can pop into a home visit. And so moms who had dads participated informally received 41 home visits. And then the next 2 bars are those sort of secondary and primary participants. So this is when dads formally sort of engaged with the program. And you can see here, now the visits get to around 50. So you see some pretty large associations. We also look at sort of joint visits, so moms and dads together. And obviously for those of the moms with no father participation, the moms with dads informally participating informally, we did see again that the formal participation led to more joint visits, so moms and dads homes together. We did also look at a moderator relationship status. We looked at sort of whether moms and dads were married, cohabitating, or not, undefined. And we did see some hints of maybe something going on there, but just to say the sample sizes were quite small, particularly for the marriage group. So we don't want to waste too much on that, but definitely it's something to perhaps unpack a little bit more. So the idea of getting at whether parents are in the sort of romantic relationship and co-parenting, or perhaps co-parenting together, does that matter? That's something I think we like to investigate a bit more. We did, when we initially submitted this, we got some comments from reviewers like, oh, this sounds great, but if we just do this, the families that have dads participating are just different than the families that don't have dads participating. And so we did lots and lots of what we call sensitivity analyses, and we control for things like mom's substance use, mom's depression, relationship status, whether they were involved in child protective services. And just to say, these associations were very robust and just as strong. So it really suggests to us there's something going on there about how dads participate in everything. That's what yields more participation and ideally engagement from moms. So we did this specifically, we published it, and I hope you find it's interesting as to the idea of the formal and informal. But we had a lot of remaining questions, mainly because, as I said, we're relying on MIS data, program home visiting data. And so it's limited in sort of all the different things you can unpack. And it was a quantitative study. So and we really wanted to know a little more about what is variation in father's engagement in home visiting. So we had lots of hunches, hypotheses based on conversations with the children's trust, based on conversations with home visitors and parents, and sort of we wanted to test some of them. So some of the things we wanted to look at are studies of visitors using to teach dads, right? We know that not all home visitors value or promote father engagement. So what are they doing? What are the more effective strategies? What are the strategies committed to? Do they vary in that? Some home visitors are really committed. Dad needs to be here as much as possible every day. Shows up. We also wanted to look at what it is about father engagement that leads to maternal attention. So what is that? Why are moms staying in the program more? What's happening? And we had a couple of hypotheses there. So are moms less stressed when there's someone to share the load? But so it's not just parenting, but also visiting, right? So it's not all on them to do all the visiting stuff, do the homework, to read the materials, to just be present and part of it. Are they more willing to go the distance? And from just the co-parenting relationship. For terms of co-parenting, regardless of whether they're romantically involved, does that also co-parenting? So we have a lot of questions that we really want to unpack. We really just wanted to understand more about maternal opinions, really to help us understand more about why dad's engagement can lead to sort of increased maternal retention. And so here's the presented model, really basic. Dad's participation, mom's retention. Really strong findings. Dad's formal participation seems to be down. Hey, that's good to know. But we wanted to sort of investigate something a little more nuanced like this. And I call this the precision home visiting model. It's kind of exactly what works for when, kind of building on the home visiting applied research collaborative model. And just I should have put at the beginning that they're one of the partial funders of this study I'm going to present now, alongside the Children's Trust. And so we kind of wanted to unpack all those questions I just asked. So what are the home visitor strategies that engage dads? It does lead to engagement. Does home visitor or even program level commitment, moderate that? If you have a program that really doesn't care, what are the strategies home visitors versus a program really intensely interested in engaging dads? And does that kind of trickle down to the home visitors? And then say we get dads to engage, does it actually teach co-parenting for us? And if so, do we see some sort of associations with margin? So this wouldn't be like the full model, but we thought this would take us a little bit further, and sort of unpacking some of these nebulous constructs like engagement strategies, and actually tell us more about what are the nuts and bolts behind this. So for this, I'm excited that while quantitative study would be great in the future, we need to get some preliminary information, and we strongly felt that the qualitative methods were driving that. And so we have a small, and like I said, we're nearly done. We want to get COVID kind of slowed us down, and so we're going to get probably about another, I don't know, somewhere 5 to 8 father interviews conducted, so we should actually findings or at least validate them. So we had interviews with moms and dads, as well as co-parents. What that means is joint as well as home visitors. It's focus groups with home visitors just to try to get that kind of conversation going. We were going to do more with observations, but it was sort of a visit with a mom and dad together. COVID kind of got in the way of that, and we could certainly do it virtually. We just haven't really picked up that thread again. Our sort of push is to get more people to do interviews. So again, small study. We've spoken to 26 people so far. We hope to speak up to 10 more. Across HFM programs. And just to say, these programs were selected that they are programs that sort of have engagement, right? So you want to go to programs that have really low engagement with dads. Although that would be something we want to do in the future. We sort of use deductive methods and sort of categorizing of data into thematic areas. And I'll just go over those things, which are going to align with the figure I just showed in the previous study. So what did we find? I'm going to kind of unpack each of the boxes that I showed in the diagram before and just talk about what we're finding. So first, home visitor strategies to engage dads. We asked that kind of broad question. What are they doing? We have here the kind of main strategies, and they're ordered by prevalence in terms of what we've heard from people. Well, first is that demonstrative interest. So this is where the home visitor is expressing interest through a positive demeanor towards dad. She's approachable, she's welcoming, she's judgment-free, and she addresses him directly, right? She's talking to him. She's engaging in conversations that pique his interest. She's tailoring her communication. I shouldn't say her, because home visitor, but anyone. Tailoring communication style and probing about dad's parenting experience and general well-being. So an example of this is she's accommodating to both of them. She's good about mom being social and open to conversation, and dad being quiet and needing to be pushed. She's with two very different individuals in the home visit, and she doesn't fixate on one of them. She asks both of them, trying to keep them both involved. So just about how the home visiting is really trying to show interest in both moms and dads during the home visit. There's also indirect engagement. So where the home visitor attempts to engage dad indirectly by doing things to demonstrate a desire for dad to join visits, even when dad isn't there. So leaving some curriculum for dad and notes with the mother to pass along. Demonstrating interest in him joining visit, or in passing conversations. So, house, oh, when you kind of come in next time, I'll be here, next week. Or emphasizing the importance of his role in the family or in visits. So home visitor said, I'll leave a little packet for dad. I left a note telling him a little about how we were meeting him. I left little gifts. We also saw evidence of an inclusive curriculum. So bringing activities and curriculum to the home visit that interest dad or tailor content to what dad said he's interested in. So the visits aren't just sort of designed with mom in mind, but also with dad. It's very intentional. I say to dads, I asked them about the curriculum. Have you read it? Do you like it? What did you learn about it? It helps to keep them engaged. And then a really important one too is highlighting dad's role. So highlighting the important role that dads have in families and draw attention to dad's strengths. I say, you're the dad, you should be here. We're healthy families, not healthy mothers. This is important for you. It's your skills and how to have a bond attachment with your child. A lot of times they accept and they don't want to participate. I think it's great because doing these things shows he's important. He does matter and we want him to join. So kind of seeing making sure, keep pushing along to show dad that it's important to join the home visiting. I think what's important about all these strategies that they came from all our interviews, but each of them was specifically mentioned by fathers. So this is sort of endorsed by dads, that these strategies sort of were effective for the dads. The next thing is kind of looking at, so those are some of the strategies. And one of the things we want to look at, well, does it matter whether home visitors are committed to father engagement? We definitely saw some variability there. Does it, whether home visitors are sort of low, moderate, or strong, or can really affect the effectiveness of the strategies they use. So it's sort of about their beliefs and commitment levels of father engagement. So we coded the interviews using the kind of framework for low, moderate, and strong. Just a few examples there. You can see in the slide. I can read it. So low. We like to have one visit a year. That's what the dad. We want to engage the dad. It's the program policy. We have to report how often a month that father participates. So their goal is pretty low, just to have dad once a year. A moderate sort of home visitor, I would say it's more valuable than they can't. They can't participate in visits with mom. I'd rather get them in a group than nothing. At least have a positive family-child interaction. So kind of that, it's important, but I might give up after a few tries. And as long as I go to a group, it's good. And a strong example of that is I absolutely love working with dads. From the minute I started working with healthy families, it was my mission to get dads as primary participants. I worked really hard for that. I've done pretty well. And here we can develop that primary participants, what we talked about with the first study, that getting the dad formally engaged is important. And as we saw in our study, it does lead to a much better attention from moms when we get dads formally engaged in the program. And this is about program intentionality. It's actually about interviews. That sort of program commitment and intentionality affects father engagement. Sort of the strategies that home visitors use. And just kind of an example here. This is about how the programs are about engaging fathers. It's reflected in the policies and practices that programs have, and it probably influences home visitors' commitment, right, in the strategies that they use. Although we haven't quite looked at that systematically. It's just a hunch, though. So sort of an example of low intentionality. If there was somebody to have a documented visit with dads, they don't get the same opportunities as mom. So just noting, right off the bat, that's not as important. Mom is the primary, dad very much secondary. And then an example of high intentionality program. When a participant starts the program, we had an intake packet that asked a lot of questions about parenting ideas and how the way participants were raised affects their parenting. The intake packet asks these questions, the primary participant and secondary participant. That's important, showing that the co-parent matters too. It shows that we want their ideas, beliefs. Just asking those questions of each parent does open their eyes to the other's perspective. So this program, essentially what they're saying is that they developed a new, sort of an add-on intake packet that specifically engages the primary participant and the secondary, which we know from the data is often dads. And in the high intentionality programs, I'm just reading some notes here, make sure I missed anything. They have father-related trainings for staff. They engage dads in a full range of services. They have dad-specific curriculum. So just sort of a lot more of intentional ways of sort of making sure that dads feel engaged, and the content and curriculum is really aimed at their needs. Where the low intentionality, it's sort of no direct recruitment efforts. Dad's role is really viewed as secondary support to mother. So what does father engagement look like? This is another project I'm working on. We're trying to sort of define engagement. It's a tricky one. It's really hard to unpack. So what does father engagement look like during home visits? So here's just some examples of things we've seen in terms of, engagement, father and family. So father's interactions with family. So first, communication and conflict resolution. So mom and dad engage in conflict resolution with the facilitation or the presence of home visitors. So dad actually actively engages in sort of working through issues that they've been having with mom. So that's the way that we see dads engaged. They engage in joint goal setting. So it's not just mom's goals, it's mom's and dad's goals that they can work towards together. So they actually set some better for them individually, but actually some that they can work towards together as parents, co-parents, as partners. Co-parenting. So mom and dad demonstrate or work co-parenting. So this would be where they might take turns sort of working with the child, the home visitor models, and they each practice, understanding one's perspective with home visitors, and sort of, maybe they have a very strong opinion on parenting practice, the one doesn't disagree, so they sort of work through that with the home visitor. And then weekly lessons. Mom and dad are actively engaged in the curriculum that the home visitor brings on a regular basis. For example, she gave us a sheet to fill out, like to write down how we feel and what we would like to change. And we sat down as a group and talked about it. And that helps a lot. We can both see each other's side of things. This is sort of that homework piece. And then in terms of the father's engagement with home visitor, a really important part of engagement. So independent goal setting. So here is where home visitor, goals with fathers, parenting skills. Also supports parenting skills with content helping answer questions. And education and knowledge sharing. Stakeholders describe home visiting content that addresses both parents' individual needs and answers dad's questions in addition to mom's. I asked the pointers so that he could help my partner so that some of our conversations don't just start to become arguments, because I know how frustrated people can be when they're very tired and don't have a lot of energy. They need to have different emotions and stuff. So just about, the dad going to the home visitor and asking, okay, what can I do in this situation? So those are how they're engaging people. Kind of fall under one or both buckets. And I think, the two can be somewhat in terms of some of the types of actions you would ask the co-parent stress. And these are ordered by prevalence. So this is kind of getting at, how does this affect the family unit or mothers unable to stay in the program? So teamwork. So this is about splitting responsibilities, making decisions together, and working as a team or a family. Parents describe building parenting coaches as more confident ability to take care of the child. Both parents' voices are heard, and one parent does not feel like they're in it alone. The parent said, because we have a thing the home visitor said, because we have a thing we're doing together, we have our goals, our challenges, our difficulties, our story of how we overcame and accomplished it. You unite them when you speak to them as a home visitor by using that kind of language. We also saw that families benefited from both relationships, so arguing less or better communication, conflict resolution due to participation in the program. A mom said, if I can't explain stuff to the father, the visitor would explain better. And the father would say, but I'm going through more. He would talk to me about it and see why I was stressed. They also support emotional and mental health support, which is really important for parents, including specifically maternal stress reduction. So these are things moms mentioned, postpartum depression support for moms or fathers, and increased sense of emotional security. Really, we heard a lot of things about mental health and sort of people speaking very favorably about having home visiting helps that, and particularly having dad present. And then social connection. Parents could have the benefit of having home visitor lean on to use as a resource and call on for support while attending home visits. And then there's some quotes about different perspectives of these benefits. So here's a quote from a father. He helped us through the baby blues period, told us some ways to bring up our spirits, like going outside, not really staying inside, moping, crying, stuff like that. Small tips to help us get through the moment. Another said, I think it's good for me to see how people is engaged and interested in everything. And a home visitor said, I feel like it gives mom a sense of comfort, knowing that dad is someone that they're comfortable being vulnerable with and sharing his struggles as a parent, knowing it's safe and to do that. Knowing it's safe to do that, and there's no judgment. So, again, we could just analyze these findings kind of do, but I think our hope was to kind of think about that model. And so we're still doing further analysis. This is just kind of the initial findings, but I think some really interesting stuff, really trying to unpack some of those concepts and see relationships between them. And just to kind of, brief conclusion, we're happy to answer any questions, because I know I just put a lot at you, but, I think father participation is an area, and in our field of home visiting and more broadly, where research really lags behind practical interests. And I think it's good to see that increasingly studies are out there. And we're happy that we're able to contribute with sort of a quantitative study showing really big association between dad being involved and moms staying in the program. But also we're hoping that once we finalize qualitative study, we can kind of unpack some of the elements that are there. We see this present study has really helped us sort of operationalize father engagement. What is it? How do home visitors get there? And identify some strategies that home visitors use, like I just said. I think importantly, how much sort of home visitors' own views about the importance of father involvement, and the new finding we weren't expecting sort of at the program level, how much that can affect what home visitors do and how much dads are engaged. And kind of our thoughts are really just to finish the study up, of course, so do more interviews, kind of get a more nuanced view of the findings I presented today. And work, we like research with the Children's Trust, who administer HFM, because they really enjoy using evaluation to make, so that's really, I think, fulfilling as researchers. So we do want them to use this information to inform any program modifications, trainings, recruitment, content, curriculum, anything that they really see can be improved. Based on this new finding about program intentionality and commitment, they might want to sort of make some changes about ensuring that every program has at least a certain baseline understanding of involving fathers. And of course, research, a bigger study, sort of testing some of what we learned would be with the qualitative study. Qualitative studies, I love them. They're so rich. But it's often useful to sort of test it out with bigger data, for which qualitative aren't really that amenable, just because of how long it takes to sort of talk to people and look for the data. So that's kind of where we're at. And these are contact details. I know today's session's kind of short, but if you're kind of thinking about anything or wanted to talk further, Jess or I, both of us, are really happy to chat with you. You can really, we mean it when you say you really can just email us. We're happy to talk to you, or perhaps even put you in touch with the Children's Trust if that would be useful as well. I think we told them we were doing this, and they were kind of jealous that you guys got to hear the initial findings before they did. So I think they welcome conversations with any of you. Do you have anything?
No, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear and I don't know where you guys are at in Oklahoma this way, but like just thinking more broadly about what the family configurations really are, and when it comes up thinking about family in the states of custody, families who are like maybe the grandparents, or how is home visiting, which I think kind of was modeled on this sort of parent-child dyadic expectation. How have you adapted to what reality is of family configurations in the homes that you visit? So just an additional thought.
That was fantastic, ladies. Thank you. I don't know, is that open question? Do you want some feedback on this? I think I've been working on this for about a year, and they're finishing up a second piece. I've taken fairly diverse and broad perspectives and approaches to addressing fathers' engagement. I think you guys already know this, but we look at two branches to our key values diagram. Along one branch, you've got the more traditional approach of getting dads to whether formally or informally involved with home visiting itself. And then another branch where we're more concentrated on doing something, perhaps just with moms, improve the relationship with dad, or at least get information to dad on how to enhance relationships, either with the child directly or the whole family unit with just another. So I'm happy to say we've been testing out a number of these different ideas. And yeah, I think it's only fair, folks, that we were today. Who wants to share? Or who wants to summarize even? Anybody want to talk through one of their father engagement strategies that you feel has worked well over the last year?
This is Yolanda, David. I'm glad to say that, of course, like depending on the family structure, we have a good number of single moms and also have a lot of working fathers. So, and fathers involved in has been one thing that kind of mess everything up. But in our cases, we were allowed to have more fathers participating in the program because they were asking maybe to visit late in the evening. That was one of the things that we didn't plan and just happened. I guess everything was that bad. So that was one of the things that, and they really, once you got the father involved, it's very amazing how the fathers get to do the activity with the children. I mean, they get involved, they ask for information. We were in some pictures with families, and they were sending family pictures doing the activity. And you can see that doing something with Play-Doh in the child. So it was very, very good to see that.
Yeah, I'm going to brag on Yolanda just a little bit because the PSA before this last one, they were attempting to get fathers to read with their children. I don't know if you were attempting to do it daily or not, but you measured it. And we saw huge differences from beginning to end of that PSA of getting dads to read. That was a heartwarming and one specific PSA here. Yolanda's program delivers a PhD model, by the way.
But thank you for the presentation. That was very good.
Thank you. One thing to note was we talked earlier this week about COVID and sort of virtual visits, and I did get some quick anecdotal evidence that there was sort of an increase probably dads participating virtually, but now that a lot of families have kind of gone back to work, they might have seen that drop down a little bit. But it did seem like the sort of when everyone was at home with the stay-at-home order, that was actually really good for father engagement. Well, good, that's what we're not.
I don't want to monopolize the Q&A time. Anyone else have questions or some information to share about your work in father engagement? Okay, I promise you they have lots to share, but maybe a little bit of shyness here of airing it out with groups they're less familiar with. I'm happy to say that all of these things are the past PSAs, and soon the PSAs that they're working on now will also appear on our website. You guys may be interested since you're involved in this work, and I'll send that your way.
Thank you.
Two things stood out to me thinking ahead to our next phase of PSAs. One is this idea of intentionality. So I'm really glad that you covered that, Becky, and the program folks on the call, something to think about perhaps with your next strategy, even if that's just one element of what you're attempting to change, focusing on the workforce and their approach, perspective on the getting fathers involved. I don't think we've had anything explicit on that topic. Explicitly, we've been attempting to move the needle there, but a lot of our work has been focused on let's attempt to change the program in this way so that fathers are feel more invited or welcome to join a session with your child, for instance. I think it's a good idea to be thinking about how do we do some part-time with our own staff so that they perhaps more motivated or feel more encouraged at least to tackle this challenging issue, especially given some of the relationships they encounter and say that not all things are like fathers are connected in various ways with children and with mother. The other thing that stood out to me and really stood out this summer as we were reading your paper, thinking about mother's retention in the program. And I think that's another area that we haven't really explored yet with our PDSA. with our PDSA, but certainly could be incorporated into this next phase. That not only tracking how often dad is engaged in the program or dad's relationship with him, but what impact does it have on some of the outcomes, and not the least of which is her involvement with home visiting. One other note specifically for, well, no, I guess it's for everyone, for Becky and for Jess, but for all of you to know is that sort of incidentally, we've been collecting some quantitative data on the same topics you've been studying in your qualitative study. So the obviously having an impact on co-parenting relationships and parenting stress. We've been asking moms and dads on the quantitative instruments how those relationships are going and how much stress is involved in them. We have a report that's due today. And it actually carries over into our work next year as well. So it's mostly associational at this point, but we are getting data at least 2 time points. We may even be able to get a 3rd time point for some of the things. And so we're looking at changes over time, especially knowing that all our programs right now are intentionally focused on getting fathers more engaged. If we see that change over time, do we see corresponding change in things like the parenting relationship and parenting stress? So we'll have to keep you posted on that. But we're definitely excited for it.
Yeah. Are you including, are you collecting those data on people who don't have father involved?
Yes, indirectly. So it's the sampling plan is to recruit the mothers first, and we ask mom, is there a father figure that we can connect with that you'd be comfortable sharing information with? And just naturally, some of them indicate no. We don't really are. The majority of the families we've surveyed so far, dad is involved to varying degrees. One limitation that we've seen so far, and we're open to ideas on how to overcome this, so we continue to collect data with these families. Most of the fathers that participated in our study have indicated that they see the child frequently. So many of them are in a cohabitating relationship with the mother. But even those that aren't cohabitating, that participate in the study, clearly there's a bias there because they're telling us they see the child multiple times a week.
Yeah. Right. That's a tricky one. Yeah, interesting.
Okay, anything else from our group before we let Becky and Jessica go? I mean, you guys want to stay on. I think we warned you ahead of time. We're about to dive into some logistics for our learning session next month. We'll be looking at slide templates that everyone has been filling out, troubleshooting any questions that might exist.
That sounds interesting, but I will leave you to it. It's nice to see everybody.
Yeah. Get in touch if you have
I
any
appreciate you guys doing this. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks.
Bye, all. See you later.
Okay, Helen, actually we're not setting the agenda closely enough. If that is the next step.
That is the next thing. Yes, we were going to jump in, and that's pretty much what's on the agenda for the rest of today, is just to go through that in detail and answer questions and prep everybody for the learning sessions in January.
Okay, well, why don't we make this more of an informal conversation? We ran through the slides last month. I'll go ahead and pull up the slide template again. I won't cover it in great depth. Oh, I thought I had it open. Oh, I know what I wanted to do. I was going to show Lisa's email. Share my screen. Okay, so everyone here should have received this email back on, it looks like November the 19th. And notice that our handy dandy PSA summary slide template was attached, in addition to the key drivers diagram and some content on the presentation from everybody received that? If not, maybe double check your inbox, and if it's still not there, just let us know and we'll send you another copy. And then I'll open this up. I guess I did have it open. Okay, I'm going to do this again. I've heard this multiple times, but just basic information about the program. You get a flavor here today of folks that we've been sharing your findings with. So here they are from Massachusetts in a far off land, but they've been connected to us through, we actually have quarterly meetings with other MIECHV evaluation teams around the nation where we share results from your PSAs and from other studies that we've done in Oklahoma. So as I've said many times before, this information is helpful for us because what we like to do is just send them the link to all of the PDSAs so they can browse them. And often it's other groups who are looking to start up a learning collaborative on a related topic. Then what we'd like you to do is provide us that key driver idea, the change idea that you opted to select, and which branch in the key drivers diagram was it on, so which primary driver or secondary driver were you electing to move the needle on. And that same email we saw has the key drivers diagram if you need a reminder. why you selected that intervention, when you actually started, and then your smart. You know about your measures, of course. So at least one outcome, process, and disruptor measure. Ideally here, we got numerators and denominators. I know most of you, if not all of you. The analysts have taken the outcome, process, disruptor input from your prior planning sessions and tried to turn that into a proportion with a numerator and denominator. And so here's where we'd like to see those definitions. Ideally, that's in the dashboard, and hopefully you can just copy and paste that over. Your change theory diagram, where we start with the change idea, the end with the primary driver we're trying to affect. We have process measures implementing that could be causing unanticipated or maybe even anticipated problems with the relationship between your change idea and a process measure, and then on down the line to that primary driver. It's okay for this change theory diagram. In fact, it's encouraged that you have more disruptor and process measures in the diagram than maybe you actually collected and monitored. So as with all good studies, you're limited in terms of the amount of data you can collect. So it's expected that your change theory diagram will have far more measures on it than you actually collected for your study. And then we're into the P, D, S, and A sections. So the plan, the who, the what, the when, the where, the do. Remember, these are the ingredients and the recipe here to put it all together. So, you planned how you wanted things to look. And of course, when we actually go to implement it, it sometimes doesn't always work out exactly like we planned. So here's where you can explain the adaptations you had to make for, the nitty-gritty details of the change idea that you implemented. We'd love to see pictures. So pictures directly from the dashboard, and feel free to reach out to your analyst by email or even suggest a phone call, and together perhaps select which pictures you'd like to highlight for purposes of that final presentation. So now that we've seen the pictures, tell us what you think this means. And here too, I would lean heavily on your analysts, especially if you'd like to say something about those meaningful difference over time, a statistically significant difference, right? That's the magic phrase. They can help you do that. Any lessons learned, based on the interpretation of your findings? What does this mean for home visiting in general? Maybe not just with your program. Somebody else were to pick this up and to do it. What advice would you have for them? Any anecdotal stories here you think are worthy of mention? We'd love for those to be documented in this place. And last but not least, what you've decided as a program moving forward. Is this a change idea that you are going to adopt? Does it need to be adapted any if you're going to keep it, or is it something that you're willing to put in the rear view mirror and move beyond? So you're going to abandon this, it didn't work out quite as we had hoped, and move on to your next change idea. In the template, you have some other support materials, things that we've reviewed usually in learning session 1. So you've got some tips here on developing your SMART aim with an example change theory diagram. You can delete those out of your final presentation if you like to avoid the additional collection, but nothing you do. Okay, I'm sure most of you have already started this. Maybe some have even finished, but any questions you all have you want to talk about? I should probably remind everyone that we will attempt to schedule face-to-face meetings with each program before the next learning session. So remind me, Lisa, date of the next learning session, have we set that yet?
Oh, can't hear you.
You must be double muted, Lisa, because we saw the mute leave. But
No.
the mic may not be working, sorry. Helen, do you know?
Yes. So we have for OK County, it's going to be on the 20th of January, and Tulsa County will be the 26th, and Cree Oaks and Frontline programs, they'll join Tulsa County, since there are fewer programs. So that way we keep it balanced in number. And I believe I've been seeing emails go out with meeting invites. So it looks like she has most of the prep calls are scheduled. So we have those in the start of January after the holiday break. We'll have those with each of the programs. So I think those are all ready to go.
Okay, another reminder with those calls, we would like to see your slides before we actually get on the phone with one another. So if you could send those to us no later than a day in advance of the call. That way we can review it, sort of have an idea of what we might need to cover as a group on that phone conversation or that web call. That would be tremendously helpful.
Dr. Mark, you mentioned that they have already sent the date for the calls. I have not gotten that. It was a confusion. They keep sending me things from Tulsa and a couple of my staff. So I'm not sure right now, even I'm putting the 20th, but I don't think their prep call, I don't think I have gotten anything yet.
Okay. Yeah, I may have misspoke. I'm not sure the prep calls, all of the prep calls have been scheduled yet.
Oh, okay.
But we will be attempting to do that so that we see you before, in your case, Patty, the 20th. So we'll try to catch you at least a week out so we can review your slides, cover any issues that are remaining.
And another question, all the staff needs to be present in that meeting, correct?
All the staff need to be present for the learning session on the 20th.
Okay, thank you.
Patty, I'm seeing two prep calls that were scheduled, one for LCDA PAT and one for LCDA Safe Care. It looks like they're separate. I don't know if you want them separate, but they're currently
better.
Is it better if they're together?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
mean,
we can make that change.
maybe the same day, but if you want to have half an hour and then the same day, I don't know.
Okay, they're currently scheduled. The PAT is for the Friday, the 8th at 3 p.m. And the Safe Care is Monday, the 11th at 2. Is one of those days better? Should we switch them to one of those days instead of both?
Friday would be better.
Friday would be better, okay.
And you said it was Friday the 8th?
Yes,
At what time?
it was at 3. Yes,
Okay, I did not receive that, so
let's see.
I don't know
Let me
if we can
put
just
that in.
check what happened, why I was getting all the information from Tulsa, not from Oklahoma City. Thank you.
Patty, you are in the list of the email.
Yeah, it looks like the invite went to Patty and to Monica. So maybe it got lost in emails. I know everybody gets a lot of them.
Creo que estoy en una junta.
I wonder if Patty by accident might have got
Okay, thank you.
added to another list too. Is she maybe on the list for Safe Care PCCT?
I just resended the invitation for PAT to Patty.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
We'll get that ironed out. Sorry about the confusion there. Any other questions about the final presentation or the scheduling that's, well, I guess, Lisa, do we have your mic working yet? Did you hear me, Lisa? Can't hear.
She might be, yeah.
So it sounds like we do have prep call set for LCDA. Do you know, Helen, how many prep calls are already on the books? Do we have them all scheduled?
I believe they are all scheduled. Let me do a
Okay.
calendar search. See.
Excellent.
Yeah, looks like 9 of the programs. Let's see if I can figure out who's not. I don't see one for frontline yet. Or parent promise. So it looks like maybe there are a couple that are still getting scheduled.
Okay, so we'll try to get those set soon. for those of you involved with those programs. For what it's worth, the office here, virtual offices, I guess, close starting next week and the week after. Not to say that if you email, you won't get a response, but just be aware your analyst, for example, may be out of pocket for the next 10 to 14 days. Okay.
Dr. Bard, I have, I'm traveling, so that's why I don't have my camera on.
Oh, no problem.
But I have scheduled, I received an email from Lisa this morning, and I think we're going to go with the 14th of January. She was asking me if that time is available, and it is. So ours is scheduled. I was just waiting on her to just confirm it with me.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you, Deidre.
And another question, I was receiving like the setup for the call with the Tulsa agency. So I was kind of confused because I thought I was a part of the Oklahoma City group. So I heard Helen say today that we were going to be with the Tulsa group. Is that correct?
Yeah, since this is going to be all virtual and nobody's having to drive in, we decided let's balance it out so that it's more even. So I hope you don't mind, but we pushed you to Tulsa since we have fewer programs there at the moment.
Okay, we don't mind. I just was making sure that I was in the right group. I was kind of confused on that, but we don't mind.
So someday soon, let's hope, right? This summer.
Right.
Has been more widely disseminated. We get back together in person. Our goal will be to minimize your drive time. So at that point, your program almost certainly would be a part of the Oklahoma City.
Okay, that's fine. I was just getting clarification on it.
Oh, good question. Okay, any other comments, questions? All right, well, Christmas comes early then. And I give you back 27 minutes of your day, but not before wishing you all happy holidays. For those of you that do get to take a break, we hope it's a healthy one, a restful one. We thank you for all of your contributions this year and what has been a very difficult time for all, very challenging time for all. We appreciate your continued push here on this topic of father engagement. And for those of you that ended up adapting other projects, just for your open-mindedness and your willingness to continue on with these quality improvement projects. And I know your clients and certainly your administrators at the health department appreciate that as well. Helen, any parting words?
No, I think we're good. We're looking forward to the learning session in January, and I'll just echo David's comments about thank you so much for all your hard work this year, and we'll see you in the new year, and happy holidays, everyone.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.